Everyone. So we're starting our second day. As you might have guessed, the general theme is homogenization and things like this. And we're very happy to have Anne-Sophie Bonnet-Vendia, who's from ENSTA and CNRS. And she's going to talk about black hole waves at corners of negative materials.
Thank you, Guy. Good morning or good afternoon, or I don't know, good evening to everybody. Thank you. I thank the organizers for inviting me. I am very happy to give this talk. So I will present a phenomenon which we call a black hole phenomenon, which occurs at corners of what I call negative materials. I will explain later. It is not completely in the topic of the meeting today, but you will see that it is related in some sense to homogenization. And it is a work that I will present results that I obtained with several colleagues and PhD students in my team. My team is POEMS. POEMS in French is the acronym of Propagation des ondes, études mathématiques et simulation. Wave propagation, mathematical and numerical study. And you see, oh, you don't see me. For me, there is something which is, okay, linked to the participants who wants to, okay. Sorry, and so POEMS is in the south of Paris, in France. Okay, I don't know, okay. So first, I will explain what I mean by negative materials, and I will present some motivations. Then I will focus on this black hole phenomenon. And so these black hole waves occurs at corners, and they are linked to some singularity of the solution of the equations. And I will detail some computations in this part 2. And then we will see that there is a difficulty to make computations, for example, by finite elements. And I will explain why we have used a complex scaling method at the corners to capture this black hole phenomenon. And finally, we will apply all these ingredients to the computation of the plasmonic resonances of a particle with corners. Okay, so typically I consider a scattering, an electromagnetic scattering problem, which I say is sign changing, in the sense that you have a scatterer, which is a dielectric medium, but this scatterer has the particularity to be filled with a material, which I call negative material, in the sense that some of its characteristic coefficients are negative. Here, for example, I will suppose that the dielectric permittivity epsilon, which is usually supposed to be positive, typically in a dielectric, here it will be supposed to be real valued and negative. And so here it will be epsilon, it could be mu also, and I have an incident wave. I want to compute the scattering effect of this scatterer. Okay, so is it relevant to consider such negative materials? And we will see that, yes, in some sense. And I want to insist on the fact that what is important is not that a material has some negative coefficients, but really that there is a sign change of these coefficients, because all the interesting phenomena occur at the interface between the positive and the negative material. And this phenomena leads to very exciting applications in practice. So the first motivation is plasmonics. If you consider a simple metal, a metal in general is a dispersive material in the sense that the permittivity epsilon, I like to see your picture. It's better to speak to somebody, sorry. Okay, so the permittivity epsilon is a function of the frequency omega, and typically this function can be given by the Drude law, which is written here. So epsilon is a function of omega. Here, omega p is the plasma frequency, and gamma is a parameter which measures the dissipation in the metal, the Joule effect. And if you consider metals like silver or gold, for example, for silver, you obtain this type of curves. In red, you have the imaginary part of epsilon over epsilon 0, the dielectric permittivity of vacuum, and in blue, the real part. And you can observe that below the plasma frequency, the imaginary part of epsilon is very small, while the real part is not so small, and it is negative. So in this frequency range, we can consider that a metal like silver is a negative material with an epsilon which is real valued and negative. And this is the reason, this sign change of epsilon, of the existence of plasmonic waves that propagate at the surface of the metal, in fact at the interface between the metal and the dielectric, which is very interesting, in particular in view of miniaturizing optical devices. So a second motivation is more related to the homogenization. It is the application to metamaterials. Probably you know that quite recently, now it's not so recent, but artificial metamaterials have been realized, which can be represented with a model, an effective model, such that both the dielectric permittivity and the magnetic permeability are negative real numbers. And these are pictures very famous of example of metamaterials leading to, in some frequency range, to negative epsilon and mu. And to justify the effective models, of course, we have to do a mathematical homogenization, and it was something quite new, the high contrast homogenization. There are a lot of work on this subject. This is not the subject of my talk. I will just consider the model, but it is behind, of course, the models that I will use. And because epsilon and mu are negative in the metamaterial, we say that it is a negative index material. We have this famous negative refraction at the interface between a positive dielectric and a negative index material. You have this negative refraction, again a negative refraction, and this can explain why a plate of negative index material can play the role of a lens, and possibly of a very good lens. Okay, so it is all what I will say to motivate the fact that I will consider a sign-changing scattering problem. I will consider a time harmonic scattering problem, and in 2D, so that we can, for one polarization, reduce Maxwell equations to a scalar problem. So I will consider this scalar problem. Now, U is just one component of the magnetic field here. And you see that it is a solution of a Helmholtz equation, but with variable coefficients because epsilon and possibly mu, but what is important here is epsilon. Epsilon has two values, one value in the positive value in the yellow zone and one negative value in the green zone. It could be a varying function, but here I will consider that it is a constant function here, which takes the value epsilon 1, which is negative. So this is the equation. In addition, very classically, it is a scattering problem. So U is a superposition of a given incident wave plus something which is scattered by the scatterer. And this scattered wave has to be outgoing to satisfy the Sommerfeld radiation condition at infinity to ensure uniqueness in the classical case of positive coefficients. K here is a wave number. Okay, so let's go directly to some numerical experiments that we did with finite elements. So you see that these numerical experiments et toujours la petite fenêtre des gens de la salle d'attente qui s'ouvre et qui me cache moi aussi. Sorry. Okay, so these simulations have been done for mu, which is constant, but epsilon is not constant. And the contrast of the two values, the ratio between epsilon 1 and epsilon 2, I will say that it is a contrast. It will be a an important quantity in the sequence, this contrast is close to -1. -1 will be a very specific case when epsilon takes two opposite values inside and outside. Here it is close to -1. And what you see is that we have different simulation with increasing the number of finite element nodes. So we refine the mesh. And what do you observe? First, you observe outside the scatterer, very classical pattern for scattering. Inside the scatterer, there is nothing because mu is not sign changing. So inside, we have not an equation for propagation. There is no propagation, no wave inside. But on the boundary of the scatterer, you see a surface wave, which is a plasmonic wave. And what you can observe more carefully is that this plasmonic wave is not the same for the three pictures. So when you refine the mesh, in fact, you always modify the plasmonic wave. The method does not converge. And also, believe me, you can observe very strong singularities that appear at the corners. And these two effects are linked. It is due to the singularities that there is this change on the plasmonic wave, which makes the method not converging. So to understand what happens, we have to study the singularities of this problem at the corner. And it is where black hole waves will occur, sorry. Okay, so we will focus on a corner. Now we consider only one corner. So we take a small disk of radius rho around the corner. We consider that the angle of the corner is capital phi, and now we will use polar coordinates r theta. And of course, now epsilon is only a function of theta. Okay, and we try to compute particular solution of the equations near the corner. So I recall the equation, the Helmholtz equation. Of course, it is natural to introduce the polar coordinates r theta and to rewrite the equation in polar coordinates. It is not so convenient to consider the polar coordinates. And what is more convenient and more instructive for my purpose is to consider Euler coordinates. Euler coordinates, I don't know if everybody knows Euler coordinates, they are deduced from the polar coordinates, simply replacing r, the radial coordinate, by z, which is the logarithm of r. It is nice because r d over dr, it's just d over dz. So that for the principal part of the equation now, we have constant coefficients, except that, of course, epsilon is a function of theta. But the equation is much more simple than this one. Of course, we have this term. And also the price to pay is that now, inside of a bounded domain, we have an unbounded domain. Because when r tends to 0, to the corner, z tends to -infinity. So we have replaced the disk by a semi-infinite strip in z theta. So we can rewrite the equation more simply like that, where now the divergence and the gradient are really the differential operators with respect to these coordinates z theta. So now studying singularities, what happens at the corner, you make a zoom at the corner, and very classically you can justify that these terms can be removed. You have to consider only the static part of the equation due to this scaling, to this zoom at the corner. So now we have to consider this equation where epsilon is a function of theta in a semi-infinite strip here. And so in this, this is a semi-infinite strip which replaces the disk. The corner is at infinity on the left, and the different colors correspond to the different values of epsilon. Epsilon is positive here and negative here. Theta in the vertical coordinate. And so it is very natural to consider, to make a separation of variables and to look for the modal solution of the equation, like that, where lambda is some complex number, also called a singular exponent in the domain of singularities. And so when you plug this form in the equation, you obtain very classically an eigenvalue problem, which looks like that. So now it is a 1D problem, very simple. Phi is only a function of theta. So it looks very simple. Phi has to be periodic in theta, but it is not so simple just because epsilon is sign changing. And even epsilon is real valued, but because it is sign changing, even if this problem looks very symmetric, if you integrate by parts, but in fact it is not set fashions. And in fact, I don't know any really any theory for this problem. For example, for the completeness of eigenvectors. But fortunately, it is a 1D problem. So we can do every computations by hand. And it is what we did. So of course, we can derive a dispersion relation. And we say that lambda squared here is an eigenvalue of this problem. If and only if lambda is a solution of this dispersion relation. You see that there is a dispersion relation which relates lambda, this lambda here, with kappa, which is the contrast of permittivity. And of course, this dispersion relation makes appear the angle of the corner, capital phi. And so before giving the results, I introduce a classification of the different solutions of the modes. Of course, lambda equal to 0 is always a solution associated to phi, to the constant function phi. So it is a constant mode. In addition, you may have a solution such that lambda has a non-zero real part. So if you consider the solution in the strip, if lambda has a non-zero real part, you have a solution which is a mode, which is, excuse me, either exponentially decaying or increasing in the strip. And what is more unusual is that you can also have some lambda which is a pure imaginary number. If lambda is a pure imaginary number, it means that in the strip, I work on waveguides, so it is my way of understanding the problem. If I consider this strip which replaces the disk like a waveguide, I can have a propagating mode in the strip if lambda is an imaginary number. In the classical case where epsilon is positive, you can multiply this equation by phi, integrate by, of course, lambda squared has to be positive. So in the classical case, it is impossible to have a lambda squared negative. So the fact that we will have this very unusual solution is really linked to the fact that epsilon is sign changing. Okay, so what happens, what we can prove by a careful study of the dispersion relation is that indeed, in general, there are no propagating modes, but there is exactly one propagating mode if and only if the contrast epsilon 1 over epsilon 0 belongs to some interval. This interval is called the critical interval. And of course, it is a function of the angle of the corner. And it takes this form where R phi is this number, this real number, this positive number. And okay, so what can we say? We can observe that -1 is always in the interval. You remember that I said that -1 is really the most critical case. So it is inside the critical interval. And then you can see that when you reduce the angle, you increase the interval. When phi tends to 0, this number tends to infinity. So the interval tends to the whole negative real axis. And on the contrary, if phi tends to pi, the corner disappears. And for phi equal to pi, this number is equal to 1. You have only -1 in the interval. It is not an interval, it is only one number. And for example, if you take a right angle, pi over 2, the critical interval is -3 -1/3. Okay, so when the contrast lies in this interval, you will have such very unusual solution in the strip, and so near the corner. So to illustrate that, here is a representation of the different values of lambda, the singular exponents in the case where the contrast is not in the critical interval. Then on the imaginary axis, you have only lambda equal to 0, the constant mode. And here it is a case where you are in the critical interval. And then you have two values, two opposite values that appear, I beta and minus I beta, on the imaginary axis. Okay, so it is useful to have the 2 points of view, one in Euler coordinates, that I like, where you have replaced the vicinity of the corner by something like a waveguide. And you can also consider more classically the solution in polar coordinates. And since z is a logarithm of r is the exponential of z. And so this is just r to the power lambda, okay? And so now we can refine the classification. We can consider first the exponents lambda which have a strictly positive real part. They correspond to evanescent modes in the waveguide and to regular solution near the corner. And so they will contribute to the physical solution. But on the contrary, when the real part of lambda is negative, you obtain unstable modes in the waveguide, which are not physical. So all these exponents will not contribute to the solution. And finally, you have these two values, I beta and minus I beta, which are completely unusual. This corresponding to propagating modes in the waveguides and to what I call propagating singularities at the corner. So let's see more precisely how they look like. So these are the two propagating singularities. And I prefer to rewrite r to the power I beta like exponential I beta logarithm of r, so that you see clearly that when r tends to 0, this is the function in r oscillates more and more when r tends to 0. And this is a representation of what I call the black hole wave near the corner. So you see what happens. You have two plasmonic waves on the two sides of the corner, which are coupled. And you see that the wavelength, in fact, the phase velocity tends to 0 when we approach the corner. In fact, what happens, if you think in the time domain, you have a wave which propagates to the corner, but when it approaches the corner, it goes slowlier and slowlier and slowlier, so that the wave finally never reaches the corner. And for that reason, it has an infinite energy, in fact, because the energy accumulates at the corner and corresponds to the fact that the radial derivative of r is not square integrable, so you are not in the finite energy space as the usual solution. Such black hole waves exist also for other type of waves, but in general, they have been studied for more singular geometries, like cuspidal geometries. While in our case, because epsilon is sign changing, they appear for a simple corner, which is unusual. Okay, there is still something which is not trivial. We have to discriminate between S plus and S minus to know really what is the sense, what is the direction of propagation of the wave. Which of S plus or S minus propagates towards the corner, and which one propagates from the corner to infinity. Again, it is not trivial because we know that we cannot just consider the phase velocity. And a way to do that is to use the limiting absorption principle, which consists in adding to the material some dissipation. So we introduce some imaginary part to the dielectric permittivity, and we observe what happens to the singular exponents lambda. So suppose that this is the case without dissipation, with the two black hole waves here. And when you introduce dissipation, all the exponents move in the complex plane, and in particular, these two exponents leave the imaginary axis. And because, for example, here, minus I beta, this one goes to the right, it means that it is the correct solution to take into account. Because with a small dissipation, it is an evanescent waves, which is relevant for the solution. Okay, so now we know which solution has to be taken into account for our problem. And more precisely, if you consider an acute angle phi, it depends on the value of the contrast. If the contrast is smaller than -1, the contribution that we have to take into account is S minus, while if the contrast is greater than -1, it is S plus. It's not important to have, just we did the analysis I have to say that. And also I want to say that you see that the black hole wave has different symmetries. When kappa is smaller than -1, you have an odd wave, harmonic wave, while for kappa greater than -1, it is even. It will be used in the second. So now what we have done, but I will absolutely not explain the details because it is quite a heavy mathematical study involving Mellin techniques and Kondratiev weighted Sobolev species. We can prove that the diffraction problem is well posed, but not in the classical framework, because we have to take into account the black hole contribution. So the solution near the corner is a superposition of a classical H1 log solution function plus this function, which is the black hole wave at the corner. So we can prove that we have a Fredholm property. And finally, we prove the uniqueness by combining the Sommerfeld radiation condition at infinity, like we do in general for scattering problem, with some energy identity that I just want to mention to end this part. Indeed, so what we have proved quite simply is that we have such an identity. So here, U is a superposition of the black hole wave plus the regular part. And we have this identity where here is something which is due to the black hole wave, which is in fact, we can prove that it is something which is positive. And it is the energy which is leaked in the corner, which is trapped by the corner. And since this is positive, this must be negative. And what is this? You see that it is an integral over gamma r. Gamma r is some circle with some boundary which encloses the scatterer. And it means that this quantity is negative. It means that some energy, the energy which goes through gamma r during one period is negative. So some energy is lost, and it is lost because it is trapped by the corner. Okay, so now suppose that we want to compute such a solution. You remember that I have shown you some finite elements result, and I said that if we do nothing at the corner, the method is not converging. So what can we do? And the idea is that, again, in fact, I replace the vicinity of the corner by some waveguide where there is a propagating wave. So I can use the methods that I use for waveguides, for computation in waveguides here. And one of these methods is to use what is called by numericians PMLs, perfectly matched layers, which corresponds, in fact, mathematically to a complex scaling. So what we do is that for the equation in the strip, written in Euler coordinates, we introduce a scaling, a complex scaling. Alpha is a complex parameter in the Z coordinate. And we will choose alpha in order that the black hole wave, instead of being propagating, will become exponentially decreasing in the strip. Indeed, if you consider you remember we have our modes in the strip. If we introduce a complex scaling, what happens is very simple. In fact, just Z is divided by alpha. So finally, the exponents lambda are changed to lambda over alpha. And alpha is a complex number. So this going from lambda to lambda over alpha, it have to make a rotation in the complex plane and also dilation. But what is important is the rotation. And so you see that if you choose alpha with the correct argument, what happens to the black hole wave is exactly similar to what we had with the dissipation. So we can again discriminate between the two using this complex scaling. And the black hole wave, the correct black hole wave, becomes exponentially decreasing in the strip so that we can do computations. So finally, what we do for the computations is that we, instead of using as a finite element domain all this disk, we use a perforated disk. We remove from the domain a small disk around the corner, and this small disk is replaced by a strip in Euler coordinates. And for the equation in the strip, we introduce the complex scaling. And because it is just a scaling, it will not modify the equation except in the strip. So we obtain exactly the correct solution. But what is very good now is that the solution in the strip is decaying so that we can truncate the strip for a numerical purpose. And of course, we have to impose correctly the matching conditions between the two meshes, and it works very well. It is an example of what we get for our scattering problem. And so around, in fact, each disk corresponds to a computation in a strip. And for example, if you consider this corner, this is the corresponding strip. The complex scaling is just applied here after the dashed line. And so you see that we have the black hole wave which has been excited, but when the black hole wave goes in the PML, in the part where the complex scaling is applied, it is decaying so that we can truncate for numerical purpose without producing any reflection, any spurious effect. But if you consider this corner, for example, here, this is not the black hole wave, it is a wave which is evanescent. So here the black hole wave is not excited and the perfectly matched layer is in fact not useful. And maybe, first, so it is before, after, with a naive method and with a new method. So you remember that with a naive method, with only finite elements, there is no convergence, and you see that the plasmonic wave is different each time. And now with the new method, you have stability, you have convergence, and you can prove it. And it is more interesting to look at a movie just adding the time dependence to the solution. And also we will consider a skew symmetric incident wave to have really to see very well the black hole phenomenon. So this is a naive simulation where we do nothing at the corner, and you see that there is some resonant effect, which is not in, at least I wrote it is not physical, at least it is not in the equation. And now with okay, sometimes the movie doesn't want to. Okay, what can I, oh. I did several tests before, but okay. This is the solution obtained with the treatment of the corners. And you see very well this black hole wave, which goes inside the corner, which disappears in the corner with this wavelength, which goes to 0 when we approach the corner. And so in the last part, if I have some time, I will explain the consequences of this black hole effect when you consider the problem, the eigenvalue problem, when you compute the resonances of a particle. So here I will consider a bounded domain. Here you have in green a metallic particle with a corner, which is embedded in a dielectric in yellow. And the problem is to find the eigenfrequencies omega, for which there is a solution U, non-trivial solution of the problem. So we are in a bounded domain, and for instance, we impose a Dirichlet condition on the outer boundary, but it is absolutely not important for our purpose. And what people do in general, what I did not before, but now I will do it, they remove this term, which is relevant. So they consider a quasi-static approximation, and it is quite relevant if the particle is small compared to the wavelengths. So we will remove this term, and now omega still appear, but only here because epsilon is a function of omega. So that we can consider that the eigenvalue is not omega, but is, for example, epsilon 1 or epsilon 1 over epsilon 0, the contrast. Okay, so now we consider this problem without this term, and the eigenvalue is kappa, the contrast. And we can rewrite this problem like that. So we look for complex values of kappa, for which there is a non-trivial solution of this problem. So U has to be harmonic, both in omega 0 and in omega 1. It is 0 outside. And what is important are the transmission condition on sigma. On sigma, U has to be continuous, but the normal derivative of U is not continuous. It has to satisfy this equation where the eigenvalue kappa appears. So that, for example, if you want to write a variational formulation of this problem, it will take this form, which is, okay, now it's clear that kappa plays the role of an eigenvalue, but you can observe that it is absolutely not a traditional eigenvalue problem. You have only rigidity terms, no mass terms. And here it is the integral in omega 1 and here in omega 0. And in fact, this problem is very interesting mathematically and has been studied by a lot of people. And the main result is that we can prove that there is a hidden self-adjointness of the problem, so that the spectrum of the kappa values are real. The spectrum is included in the real axis. Also, what is well known is the case of a smooth particle. And for a smooth particle, it is proved that the spectrum is made of a sequence of negative eigenvalues, kappa n, which converge to the famous value -1 that I have already mentioned before. You remember that kappa is a contrast of permittivity. And so the eigenvalues corresponding to modes of the particle converge to -1. And I will consider a particular case where the particle is an ellipse, because in that case, analytic formulas are available. And we'll consider particular configurations between for the two ellipses, inside and outside, such that in our case, all the eigenvalues are greater than -1. It is not always the case, but for our case, it will be the case. For our configuration, it will be the case. And also for my purpose, I will, of course, an ellipse has a lot of symmetry, at least two symmetries, and it is symmetric with respect to the horizontal axis, so that we can classify the modes between odd and even modes with respect to the horizontal axis. This is an even mode, this is an odd mode, and we have two sequences of eigenvalues. In red, the odd eigenvalues, and in blue, the even eigenvalues. Okay, so what is less well known is what happens when the particle has corners. But there are some studies, and what has been proved is that the corner is responsible for the presence of a continuous spectrum. Before, for a smooth particle, we had only discrete eigenvalues, but now with a corner, we have a continuous spectrum. And this continuous spectrum is exactly the critical intervals that I have introduced before. If you remember, I of phi, which was, for example, -3, -1/3 for a right angle. So this continuous spectrum is precisely due to the black hole waves. And so if you if we use the idea of replacing the vicinity of the corner by an infinite waveguide, we understand that the corner, in fact, plays the role of infinity in unbounded domains. So that for people who know scattering theory, in fact, what happens is exactly like for scattering problem in unbounded domain, but now at the corner, some of the energy of the modes will be leaked in the corners due to these black hole waves. So that if you consider the eigenvalues of the ellipse without corner, some eigenvalues are in the critical interval. If you introduce the corner, what happens in general? In general, these eigenvalues will move in the complex plane and become what are called in scattering complex resonances. But due to the symmetry, sometimes some of these eigenvalues will remain real eigenvalues, and they are called embedded eigenvalues. And the existence of embedded eigenvalues for this configuration has been proved in this paper of Lee and Shipman, and we will give an illustration of their result. So the idea for the computation is exactly the idea I gave before. So we replace the vicinity of the corner, the small disk, by a strip. In the strip, in Euler coordinates, we introduce the complex scaling in this orange zone. But now we solve an eigenvalue problem. And so what we expect, due to the complex scaling, we expect a deformation of the continuous spectrum. The continuous spectrum without scaling is the critical interval. It is an interval on the real axis, which is here represented by a dashed line. Here in red, because maybe you remember that for a contrast smaller than -1, the black hole wave is odd. And here in blue, because the black hole wave is even for kappa greater than -1. What we prove is that when we introduce the complex scaling, these two parts of the continuous spectrum will move, but on two different sides of the real axis in the complex plane. And when we increase the argument of alpha, we increase the deformation with a very nice logarithmic singularity at these values, kappa equal to -1. And since I have taken an ellipse such that all the eigenvalues before the corner were greater than -1, I will focus on what happens only on the blue zone. And this is the results that we obtain. So the crosses correspond to the computed eigenvalues. Here is kappa equal to -1. Here is the real axis. Okay, so we obtain several eigenvalues. And in blue, this curve is the predicted continuous spectrum deformed by the complex scaling. And so you see that we have a very nice discretization of the continuous spectrum. But in addition, we have several eigenvalues that have been unveiled thanks to the complex scaling. And to understand what happens, what we can do is to superpose to this numerical result the exact eigenvalues of the ellipse without the corner. In blue, the even eigenvalue, and in red, the odd eigenvalues. And what you notice is that the odd eigenvalues have been very slightly perturbed by the corner, while the even eigenvalues have really moved in the complex plane. And this is easy to understand why it happens, because if you take an odd eigenvalue, an odd mode, in fact, at the corner, which is here, at the corner, the black hole wave is even. And so there is no coupling between the mode of the unperturbed ellipse and what happens at the corner. So there is a very weak coupling, very weak influence of the corner. That is why these eigenvalues remain on the real axis, while for an even mode, there is a strong coupling between the mode and what happens at the corner, which is represented here. So the black hole wave is excited and makes some energy to be leaked in the corner, which explains the imaginary part of the eigenvalue. So this is the end of my talk. So the conclusion is that what I have tried to explain is that when you have a sign-changing interface plus corners, you observe hyper-oscillating singularities that we call black hole waves. That these black hole waves require a specific treatment numerically, and that we find that a complex scaling is a good solution. What I have not mentioned is that, in fact, it is very hard to obtain good measures, and you need to carefully mesh the smooth interface with a mesh which has to be symmetric with respect to the interface, because if you don't do that, you obtain very spurious modes, for example, for the modal problem like these ones. So it is quite hard, even for a smooth interface, to obtain good results. And what can we do now? Of course, we can consider the 3D problem. For example, with a conical tip. It is the subject of the PhD thesis of Maran Riani, but for the moment we did only the theory and no numerics. And what is funny in 3D is that you can have several black hole waves, not only one, for one corner. Also for the plasmonic eigenvalue problem, if we don't remove this term, we have really to solve a non-linear eigenvalue problem in omega. Could be also interesting. But finally, and probably for the discussion after the talks, of course, it is possible that everything I have presented is not relevant physically, because first, the model was deduced from a homogenization process. So, and the homogenization models are not very precise at the interface. So what is the model relevant near the boundary, near the corners? What is a corner, etc., etc. There are a lot of points that could be discussed physically, and I thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot. So, are there any questions? Yes, Marcel.
Okay,
Yes,
so thank you for the talk. Very interesting. Okay, questions from the physicist. First, why is that called black hole waves? So, what is the negative and positive part? Is it the metric in the general relativity or something like this? And second, you almost answered the question: is what is left in a real physical device of these waves that are with smaller and smaller scale near the tip? And last thing, and this is more mathematical, you said at each cycle you have energy loss. So what becomes of its energy? Where is it stored? Where does it go?
So first, for the terminology, we just have used the terminology that was previously used by other people. And I think that black hole just means that the wave in some sense disappears in the corner, but nothing to do with astrophysics. Okay, now for maybe the third question. What I understand is that in some sense the model consider, for example, plasmonics, maybe it's easier than metamaterials, at least it is a metal. So there are several limits. First, I neglect the dissipation, then I consider that the corner is a perfect one. And in practice, there is some dissipation, and the corner probably is not perfect. And so it depends, but if the dissipation is sufficient so that the wave is completely absorbed before seeing that the corner is not perfect in some sense, we can consider that the corner is perfect. And then still we have the dissipation, but what we have seen is that for a perfect corner, our model is the limit of what we obtain with the dissipation. And so what I suppose is that since the wave becomes very, very, very oscillating at the corner with a strong gradient, in fact, the small dissipation produces a large amount of a small dissipation in the material due to the corner, and due to these oscillations will produce a large amount of dissipation. In fact, it is what we have tried to quantify, but it was not completely clear.
Okay. Thanks.
So can I just ask that question once again? It was the same as my question. So in a real material, if it really were true that the corner were sharp enough, would it heat up? Is that what you would expect? That is, in other words, the energy would be maybe translated to vibrational energy of the molecules and then just dissipated as a rise in temperature outside of the wave equation model?
Oh, I am not sure to have
I mean,
understand the
in
question.
other words, where does the energy go? Does the tip
Yes.
heat up? Does the tip heat up in a real physical?
Yes, I suppose that the energy would be dissipated in Joule effect typically, but because the wave, yes. And maybe I can add something also, is that if, on the contrary, we suppose that there is no dissipation, but we have a round, a smooth corner, then mathematically we will have a reflection of the black hole wave, which will go back in the domain.
Mm-hmm.
Of
Yeah,
course, it
conservation.
Means that,
Yeah,
yes,
conservation
it
of the
means
energy.
that if we have a very small dissipation, the design of the corner has to be very precise to obtain what we want to obtain. And at least the risk is that we will have a strong effect of the design of the corner that is not predictable. Also, we can imagine to, if people want in practice to take advantage of these black hole waves, we can add something at the corner to help the black hole wave to escape. It is what is done for elastic wave, where they add some material which mimics what is the complex, which makes the complex scaling in some sense. So it depends if we want to avoid these black hole waves or if we want to use them, if they exist, of course.
Great.
I have a question on Sophie.
Hello, Michael.
Hello. So you've studied the time harmonic problem in one of the two polarizations in 2D electromagnetics. Does the effect happen in the other polarization?
If mu is sign changing.
If mu is?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I see.
And of course, in 3D, we have the two effects which are combined.
Right. And do you expect that there is some kind of a resonance expansion in which these black hole modes participate?
I don't know. It is a good question, but I don't know.
Lee, I think you've been asking.
Yes, I do have a question. So, thanks for the talk. You talked about, trapping waves at the corner. But my question is, what if I have a shape that's kind of like a dumbbell? I take in the middle, I just kind of pinch it very, very, very thin, like a corner. Do I get that kind of trapping in this pinched little place? Or if you...
Can you repeat?
Right. So imagine you take your oval and you pinch the
Yes.
middle. You pinch the middle to very, very thin. Do I get the pinched part in the middle to be absorbing as well?
So you mean that the boundary remains smooth, but what?
Yeah, I
You will-
mean, say or you can think of I take two triangles and just glue the tips together.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. Even if indeed, I don't know if I will answer the question, but at least if we have like a checkboard, no,
Yes, a
like
check.
two square with a checkboard, non, c'est pas ça, un échiquier, with
Un
a
checkboard.
checkboard with negative materials and positive materials. Then, as far as I remember, yes, then the critical interval fills all the negative real axis. So it is a very singular case. So I think that it will be the same in the case you consider. But nevertheless, we could, yes, we expect the same effect.
Okay, thanks. But then, say in a checkerboard, each corner is absorbing, then the wave has to go somewhere, right? There are many corners, and if each one is absorbing, like perhaps some corner has to give out.
The problem in the checkerboard is that at one point you have 4 domains.
Right.
And instead of 2, and it is really quite different. But we never did simulations with that. We could do. I don't know. You wanted to ask another question about this point, but probably I did not understand your question.
No, I mean, yeah, that's exactly my question. But I do have one more question, but I want to see if other people want to ask. Thanks.
There's a question in the chat.
Yes.
I don't know if I can see the chat. No, I cannot see the chat.
I can read it for you, Sophie.
Yeah.
It's from Clément, and it says, a great talk, by the way. What would the results look like if the corners are absorbing or reflecting? Can we replace, can we place a barrier at corners?
So what?
I'm not sure. I mean, that's what it says. Maybe Clément should tell us exactly what he meant here.
Qu'est-ce qui se passe si les coins sont absorbants ou réfléchissants?
Ouais, mais in what sense? At least what I can say is that if, I don't know if it was a question, but if we take into account a small dissipation in the material, then if this dissipation is small, the results are very similar to the results that I have shown, which are the limit for a small dissipation. So there is a continuity. It is a way of understanding the question. But another way, as I said before, is that if the corner is not a perfect corner, you imagine that in my strip, it is like if the waveguide is not infinite, or if it is perturbed, so that the propagating mode is reflected. And so something which the black hole wave will be reflected in the domain. And in fact, it is exactly what you observe when I show the numerical results where there is this resonance effect here with the naive simulation. I don't know if I will be able to, okay. So here, we just use the finite elements around the corner so that the corner is not taken into account very well. I did the resolution of the wave is not correct near the corner. And so it is exactly as if we had truncated abruptly the waveguide. And so there is a reflection, and that is why there is this resonant effect, because the black hole wave is reflected, while here it is not reflected. So this is a reflection due to the geometry. If the reflection is due to the material, then there is some continuity with respect to the dissipation. And if the dissipation is small enough, we recover the same results.
Everyone seems to be quite. I cannot resist asking the question, but if your corners are not perfect, but they have a slightly wiggly shape, do you imagine that these black hole waves will disappear, or they will be just be stable in some way?
What I said, Guy, exactly. When you have
so instead of having this, you bend a little bit.
Okay. The corner, there is a corner, but
there is a corner, but slightly distorted, or yeah.
A curvilinear corner, is it?
Yes, for instance.
In fact,
of course.
Carl Michael Perfect, who worked about the plasmonic problem with corners, has studied the case of curvilinear corner, and I think that there is still this black hole phenomenon, but I did not still read the paper. But I can imagine that
maybe I can make a comment here from the theoretical math side, which is that perturbations of these straight corners goes back to Kondratiev, as you mentioned. It's in the 1960s, and the biggest tradition of this in the math community anyway was maybe started by Melrose with manifolds with corner, and all of this scattering theory in the pure math community is really strongly based in this, and the complex change of variables. Well, the Euler change of variables is really fundamental to Kondratiev's point of view, but everybody has been doing it better and better for decades. We've been getting better at this, and Melrose has a lot of technology and a lot of students who've worked on this. And Sjöstrand thought about, I'm sure you're aware of this, and all the much more recent stuff that you quoted is closely related, but in particular in the math community, many of these complete asymptotic expansions have been carried out. So they handle the perturbations, but of course one has to be careful about how big the perturbation is. That is, whether it's honestly a smaller correction to the corner or whatever it is that you're doing. But that's exactly the precise formulation of that is part of the issue of many of these theoretical works.
Okay, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but we'll have hopefully another time for discussion of this talk and others at 2 p.m. and we're running really, really close to the next talk. So if it's okay, I would suggest to cut it here, and I very much hope that we can discuss more later in the day.